Yo, what's good everybody? It's your boy PK and welcome back to another Blue Protocol Star Resonance video. And before we get started into this one, I do want to give you guys a big thank you and show my appreciation for all the love that you guys have shown on the channel thus far, especially for my last BPSR video. At the time of this recording, it's definitely been my best performing video by far, almost hitting the 400 view mark, which for a new channel, that's something I definitely didn't expect. So once again, thank you guys so much for the love and support you guys have been showing me. And of course, if you guys are continuing to enjoy this content, be sure to leave a like, hit that big subscribe button so we can keep growing this channel, and let's just have some fun with this game, man. But before we get started into the actual discussion for this video, which will be about new resources and, of course, looking at an overview of the characters, or classes I should say, I do want to show you guys that we have reached the 5 million mark for the pre-registration rewards. So in the last video I did for BPSR, I mentioned that we did hit the 4 million mark, or we're past it at the point that I recorded it, and I was assuming we'd hit it close, if not around launch time, and what do you know, a couple days later we did end up hitting it. So you can definitely expect that we will be getting all of the pre-registration rewards that we were shown on the official website, which right here. So that last one, the loyal pickup pup, we'll definitely be getting that one. For some reason it doesn't show that it's checked off yet here, but I'm sure they'll update it soon. So yeah, just wanted to let you guys know about that. Now, next things up, just real quick, going over the other resources that have come out recently, is that Maxroll GG, which is a site that hosts and services a lot of different games, looks like to be mainly like MMO games and stuff of that nature, has made a separate branch for the BPSR content. So if you use Maxroll or are looking into getting a site like this, they have finally posted something for this with a whole bunch of different guides, as you can see right here in the hot topics, from a general talent tree guide, skill system, your general battle imagines, even your game plan for the first couple weeks and month into the game, what you're going to be looking at for your dailies and weekly guide, if that's something that you want to focus on when you start your journey, and a couple of other things too, like a beginner's guide, general gear guide, life skills, and a whole bunch more. And as you can see at the top right here, we have a bunch of stuff like resources showing you all the different kind of things in this game and other guides of that nature. A build planner, which is more so like a build profile than a planner, right? You're pretty much just showcasing what your build is going to end up being, or if you're going on launch and using it, then you're probably just going to be updating it with what your current build is. And you can also post that into the community build section that will be alongside the build guides, which is made by creators and the community, so you can showcase to other players what your build's looking like, see what theirs is, and see how everyone's doing in terms of builds. And then another site for those that might not be into Maxroll or maybe prefer Prydwen is, of course, that Prydwen has made another section for BPSR as well. I know when it comes down to sites like these, both Prydwen and Maxroll, people will have varying opinions on how they feel about the information. Either they think it's accurate or they think it's not, especially when it comes to tier lists, because at the end of the day, things like tier lists are going to be subjective to everyone's opinions, besides like the couple of certain things that the whole community can come together and say, yeah, that's broken or that's not. But in my opinion, I've used Prydwen for a couple of my gacha games that I played or have played in the past, and I'd say around 70 to 80% of the time, at least to me, their stuff has been pretty accurate, or things that I personally felt made sense when it comes to the games that I played. But of course, it's your own opinion at the end of the day if you think these sites are worth your time or the information is accurate. So ultimately, use them if you want to. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of them, so that of course you have even more resources to help you on your journey once the launch is finally here. And now getting into the meat and potatoes for this video, which is just a basic class overview. Of course, I'm not going to go in depth into any of these classes, mainly because since I've only played in the beta and played one class at that, I'm not going to be confident and tell you that I know every single thing about all of these classes and how to play them and what's best and what's not and all that good stuff. But for those of you that haven't seen anything about this game yet and have only seen maybe just a couple of teasers about the characters that they posted on their official websites, I wanted to make a video just of an overview to showcase what all of those classes are, so that you can have a better understanding of what the classes offer and can make a decision on what you're ultimately going to be playing. Because at the end of the day, this is a game that doesn't really focus on like alts and stuff, say for like Lost Ark if you played that game, where making alts was a foundation to building up your main character strengths and stuff. Alts are helpful in this game in some senses, and I'll maybe go over that in a different video, but they're definitely not mandatory, and most players will tell you, and from what I've seen, that you're ultimately only going to be focusing on one main class to build because the resources in the game will be limited, and since you can't really share certain resources with different classes, like DPS resources for your skills with a support class and stuff like that, you'll ultimately be playing just one class or switching between different classes within your kind of category, whether that's DPS, tank, support. So at the end of the day, you can really just focus on one class and be just fine, and alts can really just be used for specific niche things that you want to use them for. But again, I'll cover that in a different video if you guys want to see something like that. As you can see here, I'm in the build guide section for Maxroll, and I just focused it based on the main class guide. If I didn't, for example, you would see, like for Stormblade, for example, you have a main class guide for each class, which is just a basic overview and everything they need to know, because at the beginning of the game, you won't really have the option to start going into the various talent paths or choosing a talent path until like a couple days into the game. So you're going to be really focusing on just the foundations of each class. But you can also see they have their own class guides here as well, made by creators, one of them being Bidoof that I mentioned in my last video, which is funny to see. So yeah, alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and start with the first one being the Frost Mage. So the Frost Mage is the master of using ice element skills and is one of the ranged damage dealers in Blue Protocol Star Resonance. This class has a large AoE skill set and various crowd control skills to assist the team. However, the Mage struggles due to low mobility while bursting paired with low survivability. If you get around those issues, then this class is powerful in both single and multi-target situations. Icicle and Frostbeam are the two specs. The Icicle spec focuses primarily on the high single target damage, while Frostbeam specializes in hitting multiple targets and supporting the team with crowd control. So as you can see here, give you a little bit of a rundown of what the class does overall. It tells you about the two specs, and if you want to get into more details, you can just go down to... Damn, I skipped it. Go down to just right here, click on one of them if you want to focus on them. But for the pros, again, this class is easy to play, as good crowd control, is ranged, and has low APM. The cons, of course, it does have long animations. Being a mage class, they typically always have casting animations. Has low defense and low mobility, so you want to make sure that you're getting in range and not too close to attacks, or if you're fighting against mobs, making sure you can keep your distance at all times and have enough time to cast your skills without getting too much damage on you. So moving on to the Marksman class. The Marksman is a ranged DPS class in BPSR. This class deals a mix of single target and AoE damage while harnessing the light element. These specs are Wild Pack style and Falconry style. As Wild Pack spec, you fight alongside wolves and rely on the mastery and haste attributes for your own damage. With Falconry spec, you fight alongside a falcon that relies on crit hits to deal damage while utilizing your other skills to deal AoE damage. And they didn't mention it in the other part, at least for that first synopsis of the class when it came to the Frost Mage, but each class will realistically go off of their own attributes that really boost their skills on top of, the basics like attack and stuff like that. Of course, if you want to know more, and even for each spec within a given class, there might be different ways that you want to go about building them and which attributes they care about more. Definitely go ahead and dive more into those so you have an even better understanding of them. But for the pros, it's ranged and easy to play. What else do you need for an archer, right? And for cons, again, it does have low defense and some long cooldowns, so be wary about your skill rotations when it comes to this class. Moving on to my favorite class, being the Stormblade. The Stormblade class utilizes the Thunder element and is one of the main melee damage dealers in BPSR. This class has two unique mechanics, Blade Intent and Thunder Sigil. The combination of these two mechanics allows Stormblade to unleash high burst damage to enemies in quick succession. This class lacks buffs or crowd control to support the team, but makes up for it with high damage and mobility. Iato Slash and Moonstrike are the specs for Stormblade. Iato Slash focuses on front-loading damage using the skills Volt Surge, Iato Slash, and Flash Strike. Meanwhile, Moonstrike uses Thundercut and Stormflash to specialize more in consistent damage and stylish gameplay. So when it comes down to the DPS side of things, Stormblade is pretty much the only kind of selfish DPS. The other DPS have some kind of crowd control or buffs that they do provide for the whole team, but again, it makes up for it in just how much damage it can do, and it's definitely one of the highest damage dealing classes in the game. And I know a lot of people were playing it in the beta. I'm pretty sure it was like the favorite class by far. So, this is definitely going to be a fan favorite for most, and definitely one that I'm going to be playing, especially that Moonblade, now that I know that the changes are coming and to launch. For the pros, it has good mobility, good defense, because it does have iframes with some of the attacks, so you can nullify damage if you know how to time your attacks properly. Flashy gameplay, and easy to learn. I would say it's easy, but it does take a lot of practice and really timing to get like the greatest amount of damage that this class can offer. If you're playing more casual and don't care about, min-maxing your rotations, you can still do good damage, but it's just not going to be like the highest numbers that you might see other players do. So I would say that is kind of 50-50. It is easy to learn, but if you want to actually do the most that this class has to offer, it does take some time, practice, and overall mastery of the class. For the cons, it is melee, so of course you have to get up close and personal and are going to be susceptible to any damage that is being done by the boss or any monsters that is close. It does have high APM and requires raid knowledge, so again, having a better understanding of the class kit as well as just the overall boss mechanics and just other things that you need to worry about when it comes to content will make sure that you are doing the most amount of damage that this class can provide. If not, again, it's still good. You just won't be doing the most that you can be doing. Moving on to another fan favorite, I'm sure, which is the Wind Knight, which my brother was playing this class in the beta. The Wind Knight is a melee DPS class that embodies the wind element and wields a long spear, enabling swift actions and skills. Fast attacks and consistent damage output characterize this class. Notably, it can deal significant damage using abilities like Falcon Toss and Spiral Thrust. In combat, you must utilize skills while managing your resources to keep them active for continuous damage. The ultimate ability, Typhoon Cleave, can assist in fully regenerating the resources consumed by these skills. And Stormblade can also do that with its ult and other classes, I'm sure. The Wind Knight also has two distinct sets of skills, allowing for diverse playstyle, whether on the ground or in the air. So this is one that definitely can have a lot of mobility, depending on your playstyle, but I'm pretty sure both end up having some type of high mobility. The pros, it has fast actions, it's balanced with survivability, and the airborne gameplay will make you feel like you're playing a Dragoon at some times, which if you played, Final Fantasy games and stuff like that, I know a lot of people do love Dragoons, so this is your class if you like that. Cons, it does have a high APM and a low self-heal, so you're going to have to be relying on your supports and tanks to help mitigate and heal. But of course, again, the Holy Trinity system, they're going to be doing that anyway, so ultimately, as long as you're keeping yourself accountable and not taking too much damage, you don't have to worry too much about self-healing. Next class is going to be the Heavy Guardian. The Heavy Guardian is a tank class representing the rock element, wielding a massive weapon called the Guard Blade. Slow but powerful attacks characterize this class. It can channel the strength of a stone to create a protective shell, providing exceptional defense and control. The Heavy Guardian can effectively handle both single target and multiple enemy groups. Although the class appears slow, it possesses a vital skill called Sand Grip, which allows it to easily pull all enemies together within its large AoE range. And from the beta, it was a pretty good range. People were pulling in stuff like crazy, so should be pretty good. In fact, Sand Grip is the only skill among all tanks that can gather monsters together in this manner. So if that's the kind of tank that you like to play, where you can go aggro, have some good protection, and aggro all of the mobs to you, this is going to be the one that you'd want to play as opposed to the other tank class. So the pros, it's easy to play, has great survivability, so if that's something that you worry about in MMOs, or you feel like you're just going to be constantly hit because you're new to them and you're not used to this kind of game, then having a class like this will definitely help you out there. And it does have low APM, but of course, it being a tank class, it will have low DPS, low self-heal, and overall low or slow movement. So be mindful, of course, of those things. Moving on to the other tank class in the game, the Shield Knight. Shield Knight is one of the tanks in Blue Protocol Star Resonance. Your role as the tank is to group mobs together during dungeons, keep aggro, and stay on the front line. Keeping aggro is easy due to the amount of natural threat of the Shield Knight generates. The Shield Knight uses the light element in skills such as Judgment and Aegis Ward for high self-sustain and survivability. The specs Recovery and Shield. Recovery is more block and self-sustain focused, while Shield focuses more on damage but still remains tanky due to its HP stacking passives. So again, this class is more so on the damaging tank side and has some self-sustain of course as well. So if that's something you want to play more as opposed to the other tank, then of course you're free to. The pros: has good self-sustain, is easy to play, and does have good defense. While the cons, again, poor mobility, and when it comes to solo clearing content, it is going to be kind of on the slower side, so be wary of that. Then lastly, moving on to our two support classes, the first one being the Verdant Oracle. The Verdant Oracle is one of two dedicated support classes, harnessing the forced element to sustain and protect allies. It excels at providing healing, shielding, and defensive buffs through a wide variety of skills and synergies. However, the Verdant Oracle comes with trade-offs. It offers very little personal damage output and can feel weaker in the early stages, relying on progression and talents to reach its full potential. And I will say, for all of the classes in the early game, they might feel a little sluggish at times, might feel a little slow, might feel like you're not getting the full potential of the class, but of course, just stick with it, level it up, and once you fully have it unlocked and everything you have to offer, if you still feel that way, you can of course change your classes. Any character can change classes within the game, so you don't have to make more if that's something that you're interested in, so of course you have that option. The Verdant Oracle offers two distinct specs, Smite spec and Lifebind spec. Smite spec focuses on dealing damage to generate healing and shielding, rewarding offensive play with supportive benefits. Lifebind spec emphasizes direct healing and buff enhancement, ensuring strong teams sustain through purely restorative abilities. So again, depending on how you want to play, either more of a aggressive healer or a more just direct healer and buffer, of course you have those options with the specs. For the pros, it's beginner friendly, it's a range class, team safety net, so it's definitely something that I saw and will probably be in a lot of raid and just overall group content. You'll pretty much always probably see a Verdant Oracle. And is strong in prolonged fights. Of course, with the sustain, the healing, and the buffs it can provide, it can do a whole lot for the team. Cons: it does have low damage output, especially in the early game, so clearing some content solo might be a little tricky. Resource management is definitely a must when it comes to this class, so being wary of your rotations, your skills that you're using, and making sure you're not running out of resources is a must, of course, when it comes to building this class as well. Lower solo impact, of course, and then it does struggle in the early game. And lastly, we do have the second support class being the Beat Performer. The Beat Performer is one of two dedicated support classes, wielding the fire element to sustain and protect allies. It specializes in offensive buffs and utility, providing team-wide advantages through a variety of skill synergies. However, the Beat Performer has low direct healing and can feel weak in the early game, relying on talents and progression to reach its full potential. So yeah, supports will definitely have it probably the hardest when it comes to the early game, since of course they're supports, right? They're meant more for buffs, healing, sustainability, and that nature as opposed to damage. The Beat Performer offers two distinct specializations, Dissonance spec and Concerto spec. Dissonance spec focuses on dealing damage to generate healing, rewarding offensive play with supportive buffs, so again another offensive style of healing if you prefer that. Or you can go on the Concerto spec that enhances buffs, ensuring strong offensive power for the team instead. The pros is definitely a lot more buff oriented than the Verdant Oracle. It still has the team's safety net, is strong in prolonged fights of course with its skill set, and it does have rewarding gameplay. For the cons, it does have low damage output, lower healing output than the Verdant Oracle, so if you are a support player and you're wondering which one is the best for you, again, based off of if you want to be buffs or more offensive with heals or just straight healing, then that will give you the option for which class you want to play. But if you're going for straight healing, ultimately the Verdant Oracle will be the better pick. Resource management, again, is going to be a struggle, so be wary of that, and it does struggle in the early game. So that's going to do it for the overview for all the main class guides. Just to give you a little TLDR for this game and ultimately what class you should play, please play the class that you feel you'll have the most fun and enjoyability with, because at the end of the day, that's what matters most, right? Will there be a meta? Sure. Will there be stronger classes than others, depending on how the balance patches pretty much operate? Maybe. But at the end of the day, as long as you're having the most fun on a given class and the most fun on a given spec too, once we start unlocking specs in the game. But again, that's just coming from straight knowledge of your class. If you know how to play your class and play it well, and you're doing your due diligence on making sure that your combat power and your gears that you're rolling are all doing stats that will only benefit your class, you can't go wrong with any of these classes. And from my experience in the beta, unless you're like a top 0.1% player that wants to do all the high tier content right away and be like a first clear person, or you just want to finish all of the harder content as soon as possible, 9 times out of 10, no one's going to care what you're playing, right? They're mainly going to care more so about your combat power, just so that you have, first of all, enough to actually do the content, because you will be unable to do content if you're not at the recommended power. But if you're at a certain power, most of the time they're just not going to care what you're actually playing. And if you know how to play your class well, you're going to be doing all of the content and be able to beat all of the content anyway. So TLDR, don't worry about your class. Choose what you think you're going to have the most fun with and play. But now that you know what all the classes kind of do and provide, and since you have the resources like Maxroll and Prydwen to go more in detail with these classes, it'll give you more of an idea of what you will truly feel comfortable and have the most enjoyability playing. And with that being said, guys, once again, I want to thank you guys so much for all the love and support on this BPSR content I've been doing. And hopefully you guys continue to enjoy it, because I do enjoy making them. Make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more BPSR content and just more content overall. And until next time, guys, peace out, y'all.